Greetings everyone, I'm Mar, and once again this is my opinion. As you can tell from the title above, it is another review. Before we get too far into things, just a reminder, if you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to the Patreon down below. If you become a member, you will gain access to certain videos early, and you also get to suggest topics for future videos, whether it be me just sitting here rambling on about a topic or another review. If you just want to do one-off support or just request a one-off review without having to commit, the PayPal link is also down below. Before we get further into review again, I'd like to say my voice is still a little bit off, but it is a lot better than it was the other day when I recorded my Mummy's Tomb video. At least this time I can actually project my normal sounding voice without it being too gravelly. I mean, I could still do that one, but this is not like my full voice. It's me just putting on a voice like when I'm talking to the cockatiel. Whereas I can just go into this instead of it being like this. If you want to know how my voice is actually, I cannot. Oh, I was a little bit better than it was earlier. But as you can see from the title, today's review is of the latest entry in the Halloween series, Halloween Kills, the sequel to the 2018 film Halloween. Weird now that we now have 3 films in this series with just a simple name, Halloween. Little redundant, don't you think? This is a direct sequel to that, picking up right where that one left off and continuing to show more of the night. So just like the original Halloween 2, it's more of the night he came home. But I guess in this game, it's more of the night that he came home again. Movie is directed by David Gordon Green. Danny McBride is once again involved in the writing process. Jason Blum and Malik Akkad are the producers. Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer are back. Judy Greer back in their roles. Anthony Michael Hall is in here as Tommy Doyle, amongst others. And of course, John Carpenter is once again involved in the musical process. Now, I'm going to get off from the start is that I didn't really see the need for 2 more Halloween films, because now we got this, and then we got Halloween Ends coming out next year. Because I thought, okay, if you're going to do another sequel, and that is essentially just like if you were to do H2O, but change everything about, make it 20 years later. I mean, the joke name that a lot of us in the fandom were using was H4O. Okay, I get that. But that one does not really need a sequel. Especially when you defeat Michael by locking him in the basement and setting the building on fire. I mean, it's not as final as the ending of Halloween 2 where he's walking out of it, burning, or even in H2O when he gets his head cut off. Those 2 ones you would think would be sequel-proof, but they somehow figure out a way to get him out of there. Although H2O, they never really give a definitive answer of how he survived the burning building, only that they never found his body. Which keeps with the whole thing of him being mysterious in that version of events, but it's also one of the things like how. And then, of course, he doesn't really seem burned, so maybe it was someone else walking out of the flames in that continuity. Now, before the film came out, both for theaters and streaming, I was listening to the reviews. Some of the fandom liked it, some of the other ones didn't like it. And I saw my friend Michael King didn't like it. I haven't watched his review, by the way, because I know he didn't like it because it said rant. I wanted to wait until after I actually watched it before I watched it. But then, sorry, my friend Mike Brown liked it. And that was the thing that was a little bit of a surprise, mainly because I figured this would be a film he didn't like as much, especially since he didn't like the previous entry. But him liking the film alright, I'm like, alright, maybe there's a little bit of hope. So I opened up the app on my phone while I was en route to Vegas with my friends for Alan's birthday, and I watched it, and I did enjoy the film. I mean, it's not one of the best in the series, better than a lot of the bad ones, but it is a serviceable film, I feel. It is a time waster. It's not perfect, obviously, and it does have issues. Its main one is that with how everything goes, it feels like a middle film. Like, if you look at a trilogy, it definitely feels like one. I know some people say, like, the Two Towers and some other trilogies kind of drag a bit, and you're like, oh, it feels like a middle one. Those ones feel self-contained, but they don't have a proper beginning or a proper ending because they're a middle story. It's as if you were to take all those bad attributes that people talk about from those other trilogy middle films and amplify them a bit. That's where it is. It just feels off. It feels like you're wasting time, and that's what the film's whole point is, just to waste time. Until we get to the third entry where we can have a proper beginning and a proper ending. Because like it says, Halloween ends, so it will be the end of the story in this timeline. But there are a handful of moments, which is why this probably would have worked better as a shorter film, but you know, short films don't play in theaters as well now. But I'd say the highlights for me, the flashback. It definitely feels like it's 78. I do like that they did manage to recreate the original Myers mask. I mean, you can definitely tell it's not just like a store-bought mask that they modified. It actually is specifically made for it, just like the Kurt incarnation of the mask is. But it's probably the best that an attempt to recreate the original mask has looked in years. Because just look at all the attempts they've done before that. Halloween 4, they technically did get the same type of mask, but the paint job made it look like crap. Halloween 5, a alien type look, which I actually do like. I like it better than the previous film's one. Doesn't look as derpy due to the paint job. Halloween 6, still decent, more similar but different. All the ones in H2O. Resurrection, still a little bit better, but all of them, this is the best it's looked since the original. You know, how he's captured, how it kind of mirrors the beginning of the first film. The fact that they actually did bring in Loomis, and it wasn't deep fake, it was an actor in makeup. Doesn't quite sound like Donald Pleasance, but it sounds close enough for the fact that he's yelling. And then showing, of course, why he wasn't killed and was instead captured again. Been a while since I've seen Notarali's fan film, so I don't know how I'd compare it to his fan film idea before they decided to do this one. But for what they went with, it's like, I buy it. It's just one of those ones that's like, probably what's in your head is stronger. So, did they really need to show the night? No, not really. But it's a treat. It's like a little bone. Especially since that's the first proper scene. You know, once again, paying respect to the original credit style, but with more pumpkins this time, that I liked. Although it still doesn't have the same effects as its computer-generated pumpkins, and not the other ones. It just didn't look as cartoony as it did in the previous film, I felt. It actually felt more respectful, whereas in that one, I was like this in the theater, like, How much of an animalistic brute Michael is in this film, because he's taking ass and kicking names with all these kills. I mean, from the time he gets out of the house and starts killing firefighters, going around, he even kills a kid in this movie. Normally he'll like leave the little kids alone, you know, except for Jamie for obvious reasons. But he'll usually kill teenagers and up. Here, he actually kills a kid. It's off screen, but he still did it. And it's like, ooh, that's brutal. Goes through town, kills other people, which of course culminates in the fight scene with the mob at the end, which is brutal for another reason. Because they get to deal some damage to him too. And then he turns around and kills them all. Which is like, alright, that's a way to end the film. I could sum up that whole scene in a SpongeBob line. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? And of course, you could say this is another note they're pulling from a previous film, because Halloween 4 had the mob, but it was more like a shotgun mob of rednecks. Like, you know, it's time to do some vigilante justice. Which, of course, led to a callback to Part 2, where instead of a teenager who Laurie kind of has a crush on getting killed by a potentially overzealous cop, it was drunks killing Ted Hollister. R.I.P. Ted Hollister. Here, though, it's them going around with items. I mean, you even got a lady with an iron. Of course, you got Tommy Doyle with a baseball bat. I'm surprised someone didn't have a sledgehammer. I mean, someone brought a gun. Well, that should tell you they really want to get him. I'm surprised no one brought a rope. I mean, they're already a lynch mob. You would think that they would at least drag a rope and then try to hang him properly. Or if not that, bring something bladed. But again, if they did that and Michael turned around on them and did something, people would be like, dumbass. But they did do the mob equivalent of monologuing at the end. It's like, you guys are saying evil dies tonight, so actually make sure evil dies. For what little she's in the film, Jamie Lee Curtis actually does a pretty good job acting-wise. I mean, for how it's edited, she's definitely a little bit better than Halloween 2, but that one, at least the issue with the theatrical one, is because of what they edited out. It seems to have no reason unless you look at all of it being the effects of the drugs they give her at the beginning. but in the extended cut, they gave her another dose later, which would more explain why she's having that weird reaction where she's not really having a reaction to external stimuli. Not as much to do as in H2O, the previous film, or the original, but for what little she's there, she has some good stuff to do. Anthony Michael Hall, I think, is a good casting choice for Tommy Doyle in this one. I do like that they bring the character Alani in there and actually make him friends with Tommy. That's another nice little thing. Lindsay's in here, her original actress playing. And they got Marion Chambers in there. And during this one of the scenes where Michael's going at her, I do like that she says, "This is for Dr. Loomis." Kind of is ruined by the next part of it, but that's a nice little moment. Michael's look in this film, it carries on from what we saw in the 2018 film and adds on to the fact that he just survived a burning building. I like the burnt look of the mask on the one side, and the other side still kind of looks fine and all that, and you compare that with how brutal he is. Ooh, this is probably the best the shape has looked in a while. I'd say this is probably the best the shape has been since at least H2O. If you really want to go back further, maybe the first two. And of course you add on with how the actors that play him, they really know how to move him. I mean, you got Nick Castle in there for some stuff, then James Jude Courtney as the main Michael Myers, and of course for the flashback you have, I'm going to probably butcher his first name, Aaron Armstrong playing him. Of course you got to get a younger man to play him when he's younger, you know, different movements and all that. Which I'll say that's kind of a nice little casting, because Armstrong, apparently from what I found out, also played Michael Myers in Notorali's fan film Friday the 31st. That's a nice little thing. Plays the character in fan film, then eventually gets promoted to playing him in an official film. One thing I was kind of worried about how they would do it was Durai. I know a handful of my friends were worried about this part of the film when it was first mentioned, I believe by Jamie Lee Curtis in an interview, which he said that it would touch on Black Lives Matter. But I was a little bit more tentative about that because it's like, it could just be the concept sounds bad, but the execution is fine. Which is why I always try to harper on it. It's like, there's nothing wrong with an idea. Cinema is an art form. Art is allowed and actually is encouraged to critique society. Be it painting, sculpture, book, song, film, it is allowed to do that. The issues arrive with execution. Whether you be too on the nose, too bad at it, or a little tone deaf, whatever the phrases you want to throw in there. That I can see people being worried about. That's why I was like, we'll just see how this plays. That's usually my motto. Let's just see how it plays. And with this film, I didn't really think it was that bad with it. It seems more like it's a more general critique on mob mentality and forming together a group to take on a perceived injustice, in this case, forming a mob to go hunt down Michael and beat the crap out of him. There's not really a lot of things involving like a greater movement like Black Lives Matter, but it's more a general idea. So the execution didn't really seem that bad to me. Now, the repeated mention of the slogan, "Evil dies tonight," was a little grating. But considering how it's tied in with the whole mob thing, it's like, hey, maybe there's a critique of the political parties always throwing a slogan in there. I'm not going to mention names here, but I think you all know a specific name I'm referencing with that. So I could see that be going in there. And plus, it just made the whole thing of them chasing the wrong, insane guy all the more tragic in a way. Because it's like you're saying evil dies tonight, and then you cause the wrong guy to get killed just because he's wearing a Smith's Groves thing. It's like, did you guys even realize that this guy isn't even built like Michael? Are you really that blind? Are your heads really that far up your own asses and you're too deluded by your whole evil dies tonight, that you don't realize that you are about to harm and, like I said earlier, lynch an innocent man? I mean, at that final moment, they're even looking through the glass and they could see him. They're really going to keep going with this. And then, of course, at the end, but they're like, oh, we were going after the wrong guy. How sad. Of course, eventually they do find Michael, so it kind of balances out a little bit there. But it's still one of those things like, So, like a little bit of social commentary there is like, you can tell what they're going for. I mean, not too distracting. But it's one of those things like, maybe subsequent viewings I might not like it as much. But for this first one, I didn't really mind it that much. Now we come to Big John and Little John, the gay couple living in Michael's old house. Like a lot of the other parts I've already gone over, this is one of those things I saw on my feed over and over again. Mainly people making fun of the fact they called each other Big John and Little John. Which I'm like, okay. And it's a gay couple that are both named John. They're going to have to give each other nicknames. I didn't really mind these characters. I mean, there's a little bit of that whole stereotypical thing you usually see in Hollywood productions, but it wasn't like they weren't so over the top and they were speaking like Jasper from Family Guy, oh so silly, fabulous. They weren't super flamboyant. Which, just to say, there are gay people that act like that. I've known one or two that are acting like that. They're a bit more foppish and flamboyant. I'm not saying all of them are like that. Here, the skinnier one was a little bit like it, but he wasn't so over the top. He was like subtle. And since it's Halloween, I mean, who's to say he's just doing it for the season? But I didn't really mind the two characters. And of course, Michael killing them shows he's an equal opportunity murderer. No lives matter. You're all equally worthless. And of course, the fact that people are getting triggered by that, there are people getting triggered by the firefighter thing. It's like, it's a slasher movie. Michael is a serial killer. He does not care your race. He doesn't care what job you do. He doesn't care. And apparently with the kid, he doesn't care your age. It's Halloween. Your ass is his. Especially with the Johns, because they're in his house. Like, he kills Big John, and then Little John sees him, and he's like, Michael's looking out the window and looks at him. But that's a nice little detail, adding him looking out the window. Nice little thing, like, I don't know, a little thing with the house. Characters that returned from the previous film, I didn't really mind him that much here. I mean, the only character I didn't really like, if memory serves, was a little bit of Laurie's daughter. But she kind of redeemed herself at the end, where we see part of it might be an act when she actually lures Michael into the trap. I can't do it. Gotcha. Here, if you didn't really like her in the first film, still didn't like her here, I'll just say, what happens at the end? Probably you'll be like, and of course for the next one, it's going to make it a little bit more personal. That's all I'm going to say there. In conclusion, like I said, Halloween Kills, I had a fun time with it. Definitely a time waster of a slasher movie. It's going to have people that like it and people that don't. It's one of those ones I could see you're in one or the other. Not really middle ground with this one. Me, I enjoyed it for the kills. I liked a little bit of the social commentary. I did like the characters. The ones that were like a little like that in the previous one, they don't annoy me as much. Jamie Lee Curtis is wasted a little bit, but she's mainly in the hospital. Let's see what she does in the next one. And of course, hopefully, this is the last one. Because after this, I don't really think we need another official one. Halloween ends. Hopefully it is the end.